And so again, you just have to use discernment.
Do you think you deserve that? Why are you settling?
I always tell you this, but the Lord showed me a vision of you as a little girl. He was like, every single time you yell at your mom, you're yelling at the 7-year-old version of your mom. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Rhodes.
I'm Julie Swanson.
That's my mom. And we're back for part 2, talking about things like marriage, finding the right person, navigating your 20s, navigating obedience and disobedience with the Lord. And at the end of the last episode, we started talking about even navigating different seasons as you're walking alone, as well as eventually with your spouse and raising children. And my mom's the best mom in the whole world. So
Thank you.
We're very blessed to talk about these things. Okay. One thing that we kind of preluded last time that I want to get into now. So if you didn't listen to the last episode, go listen to that. We talked about my mom toured in a rock band all over the world, lived in LA, had good relationships, bad relationships, and eventually married my dad, which is not what she was expecting, but what she needed.
Yes.
And now we're here. So
that's right.
So one thing that I want to dive into today is talking about, we talked a little bit about navigating conflict with spouse, but let's talk about navigating conflict with you and I.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So my mom and I have an amazing relationship now. We're very, very similar. And my mom tried to tell me that our whole life, but I did not accept it till I think in my 20s probably. And I would say that I'm definitely the black sheep child of the family. Would you agree with that?
Well, I don't like that term, but...
Here, move the mic a little bit closer to you. Okay, I am the middle child, true and true.
Yeah, you are the...
And as you would say, the oldest, the firstborn daughter.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah. I was the most difficult of the three. Let's be honest.
True.
I pushed the limits compared to the other angelic beings that you raised.
True.
So my older brother is very inside the box and very practical and brilliant. And then there's my younger sister who can kind of hang with both parties.
She's a blend.
And she was always the mediator, very pure-hearted, rule follower because she was scared to get in trouble.
Loves
to ask questions. But definitely a blend. And then I was like, if there's a box, I would like to blow it up with dynamite because boxes are dumb.
Here's Megan. So when your kids are outside playing, right, in the yard, and you say, don't go past the sidewalk, right?
I have no idea what you're going to say.
Megan would go, if this is the sidewalk, she would put her toe over the sidewalk in the place she wasn't supposed to, and then she'd look back. Do you see me? Yes, I see you. Don't go past the sidewalk. This is Megan every time.
And then Allie would be doing this.
Yes.
Allie would be like, Mom said we're not supposed to go past the sidewalk.
Yes.
And Ian would be 3 feet behind the line that you told him to because he wouldn't even want to get close to the danger zone.
Or he too would be like, no, Megan, come on, Megan.
No,
like protector.
And
he was always a protector.
I'm like explaining why it would be okay and why the line.
Instantly.
I'm like 1 inch over the line is fine. Because
instantly.
Here are my 3 reasons. Yeah.
Yes, instantly.
That's a very good analogy, Mom. That was good. So, whether it was like Mom giving me a curfew and I would come 3 minutes past the curfew or even just encouraging me not to hang out with people and I did it anyway or whatever. Thank God. I will say, like, you instilled such a good moral compass in each of us that none of us ever crossed a line that was truly detrimental for our life. Like, praise God. Like, none of us got into drugs or were sleeping around or, like, doing any of that. So, like, glory to God.
Yes.
That whether it was, I think you guys put the fear of the Lord in us because, and here's a word for you guys practice what you preached. And I think not that you guys are perfect, but I think it is, and let's talk about that first, like parents who say one thing and do another, I think is like one of the most detrimental things that you can do to your children because you are telling them, nobody respects anybody that's like, do what I say, but not what I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So how did you guys you guys did not have alcohol in the house. You wanted to be the home that everybody felt safe going to. Nothing made you happier than 100 shoes at the front door.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how did you and Dad navigate those conversations as early parents and later in life when you had teenagers? And how did you guys hold yourself to that standard of like, we want to be good representations of parents for our kids?
Well, I think you take each season, again, you look at the season that you're in and you say, okay, what do we want this season to look like? What do we want this season to look like? What do we want this season to look like for our family? What do we want this season to look like financially? Because what do you need for the season? What do we want this season to look like our relationship? All the components that we were talking about.
You had a vision for.
And you have to have a vision for that. And then you evaluate, and then you keep evaluating on a regular basis. Because again, everything's gonna change. I mean, just because something happens one week doesn't mean it's going to be like that the next week.
Or with one child, the next child.
Or the next day. I mean, it's not. So you can plan, best laid plans of man, right? But God's got it. Just remember, He's got it. And so let Him guide you. So you write the vision, make it plain that you can run with it. Habakkuk 2. But let God guide you. And then just go over those plans and say, how do we need to tweak? What do we need to do here?
What did that look like in the midst of craziness? Like, was that typically in bed in the evenings, or was that in the mornings?
Whenever you can find it to it.
How are you intentional? And I assume you probably led a lot of those conversations because that's just more of your personality type. So that's another thing we should bring up too, because I think some women wait for their man to be like that, but some of that is temperament. And I know you had to learn that with Dad. Like he was happy to be like, oh yeah, we should talk about this. And sometimes that's me and Landon too. Like Landon's definitely a driver, but like I'm just better at asking questions and I'm better at like putting that before us a little bit, but he really enjoys it because he's like, oh, I'm so glad we're talking about this, right?
Well, and then too, because I had spent more time with you guys during the day.
That's good.
Then I would fill him in on what happened during the day.
Yeah. Or here's what I think Megan's struggling with.
Exactly. And then, so then we would adjust for that.
That's really good. Where do you think parents most go off when it comes to that? And why do you think parents avoid those conversations? And when they avoid those conversations, what happens?
I think because they get too busy with the kids. So don't get too busy with the kids that you lose your coupleness. I mean, because that is...
Or you're just existing and you don't have a strategy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you're so overwhelmed that you're just literally going from day to day. Wow. So you get up, you go to work, you come home, you do the same thing, then you go to bed, then the kids are in a routine. It's just like, it's like this. And then you're just on this little treadmill and you can't get off.
Wow.
And then you don't even know that you're on the treadmill. That's the thing. That's what usually happens. And then all of a sudden, then the couples then start doing this. Just a tiny crack is all it takes. And then you're not talking. Then you're not, it's just boom, 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 boom. And then pretty soon.
Yeah. That's where I think routine comes in too, because if you just let or you always talk about this, you can be friendly to your kids, but you're not your kid's friend.
Right.
And that's where, like, if your kids just walk all over you, like we were just talking this show that we're watching, and this dumb 18-year-old kid was threatening his parents and telling them what to do on the show.
Yeah.
And he just walked all over them. And it was like poison to my ears because I was like, if I ever thought about doing that,
I would have left him in the wilderness.
100%. He deserved it for days. Best thing that could have happened to him,
Yeah.
That entitlement.
It's a TV show, by the way.
It's a TV show.
It's like I wouldn't have left him in the wilderness, but it's like
that was the role of the show.
Correct.
And he should have been
to teach him a little bit. Of,
especially men,
because he's spoiled.
Men need to be So what would your advice be to people that? I think it's just fear, like that they don't have these tough conversations. People don't know how to get uncomfortable, and now there's so many bratty kids, but. Also structure, you know what I mean? Like teaching kids that, hey, 9:00 is when we go to bed and this actually isn't negotiable, right? How did you guys navigate that with us? Because we were kids that were always asked why, and we wanted to know why we were doing something.
And some of you were night owls and some you were all different. And then because we were always in and out and go stuff, and whatever, I wouldn't say we really had a routine, but we tried to do the best that we could. That's probably just one area where...
Yeah, we kind of freeballed it. That's because we had church every night.
Yeah, or something, you know.
That's true.
So that's the area.
But I would say once we got home, we still had a routine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like, okay, it's time to go to bed. Now, like, we didn't get the habit of like, okay, we come home from church at 9:00 and now we're going to turn a TV show on.
No,
you know what I mean?
no.
I think that it was, we did have a routine in the sense of that. And you guys took bedtime very seriously, and we'd read on the bed, and you'd read us stories, and we'd sing the blessing every night, and just simple things like that where, we definitely knew you guys were our parent, not our friend, even though you were friendly, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's especially, I think, in the junior high and teenage years, that's when parents seem to check out a little bit. I will say dads have a tendency to check out when the kids are junior high, especially daughters. And that's when your daughter needs you the most.
Wow.
The daughter needs to be hugged on a daily basis, sometimes in the morning and the night, because that's the one thing she needs more than anything else. And if she doesn't get it from you, she's going to go looking for it somewhere else.
Yep.
And same thing with boys, they have to be hugged by their mom,
Yeah.
And that's when, that's the worst time of life for anybody. I don't care. I would just like, someday I have questions for God. What the heck about junior high? Yeah. Nobody likes junior high.
Honestly, I wish you would have homeschooled me.
Oh,
I wish.
Talk about Mean Girls. I mean, the Mean Girls movie, and just all three of your kids. Allie was 6 foot tall in 8th grade.
I was 6 foot tall at 12 years old.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean.
Yeah.
But we just, again, we navigate through those seasons.
Yeah.
We
on your front foot, not your back foot.
Correct.
Yeah.
And when you guys would come home in tears or something, we would just say, hey. And
how did you not want to just throat punch someone?
Oh, I showed up at the door one time.
I remember that.
For Allie.
I remember that.
For Allie.
You did.
That was when, the internet had just come out, I believe, and it was MySpace. It was MySpace, and she was being bullied on MySpace. And
Mom showed up at the door.
And I took Allie, I got in the car.
I remember that.
And I showed up at the door, and I said, the girl comes to the door, and I said, is your mom here? And she was like, what?
Ain't playing no games.
And the mom came to the door, and the bullying stopped.
Yeah, the crazy thing about now is people have receipts. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, you did this, and how I know you did this is I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, that's just where I'm so grateful that there's so many types of alternative school now. And, I'm super grateful our church is starting a school, and we get to be a part of the development of that. And there's, again, why you need to make more money is you have options for if I did want to hire an au pair or get 12 families together and do something different. And now I don't know if you know this, but as of last year, you can now play Class A public high school sports as long as you're in one class at the school, which could be like gym.
Yes.
So you're not getting indoctrinated, but you get all the good aspects of like...
As it should be.
A-level show choir, A-level... I mean, if you're a good athlete, they'll want you on the team,
exactly.
So that's kind of cool.
Look at what is it? The Lancers? I mean, they're
Omaha Lancers,
hardly ever in school.
That's true.
But I mean...
That's true.
I'm just saying they get to do pretty much that, and they travel all the time.
Did you guys ever consider homeschooling or no?
Yeah.
You did? Mm-hmm. What was your reasons for not at the time? Do you remember?
I think just the social aspect. Mm-hmm. I think.
Yeah. Well, it was way different back then because nitdays, homeschooling is like, my goodness, there's an activity every day. You couldn't be antisocial if you tried.
And I think it was just, it'd be what, 30, is Ian's 33, right? He'll be 34 this year. Mm-hmm. So 34 years ago.
The resources again.
No, they were not like they are
It was
today.
like, now there's homeschool bookstores basically that you can go to and you can shop. I mean, that excites me. I'm like, because, one of my favorite things about growing up was two things. One, on the Mac computer in Ian's room, the third grade adventure, fourth grade adventure, all those computer games that we play, so fun and educational.
Still have all those.
I would like to play them again. And then, second of all the books that you'd give us, logic puzzles, or the ones that we'd work on in the car for long car rides. That is how my brain works. I'm self-study.
I was always teaching.
So fun.
Always teaching. I was talking to Allie about this on Tuesday. And in the summertime, I'd go to, I don't know, it was Wally World or whatever. Yeah. And I'd get, if you were in second grade going into third grade,
yes,
I would
those
say,
are my favorite books
get the
ever.
third grade book because it was before iPads and before all this stuff.
Yeah.
We'd have those in the back pocket of the van and you'd all
100%.
have them and you'd be working on them every time you were in the car.
It was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
And then remember these things?
Yes.
What were those? The trivia? Did you have those? We had these trivia things. I was terrible at them, but it was like 4th grade trivia, 5th grade trivia, and Ian, of course, knew everything because his brain is an encyclopedia.
So I always had to get a couple books ahead, whatever. We had those. And then what was the other thing?
We do I Spy also in the back of the car.
I think we had car bingo.
Yes, that's what it was, car bingo.
With the little windows and everything. But I was always teaching, but you guys didn't realize that you were learning because I made it fun. And then
100%.
Upstairs where the computer desk was, we had, like 1st grade, 2nd grade, we had reading, math, science. Remember Miss Frizzle?
100%.
And then what was the other one that you guys really liked?
The Carmen Sandiego one or something we had too.
Carmen Sandiego,
And then Oregon Trail. I love all of those. Educational games.
Yeah.
And then you could trust that we were learning on the computer. Yep. And I'm like, they're so fun.
And if you got your homework done, then you got extra time on those programs.
So fun.
And then it was all about beat the level, and then you could go to the next level.
Absolutely. And we're competitive. You instilled a healthy competitiveness, which I am so grateful for. Again, that show. I'm not a very competitive guy. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to punch you. Oh, so annoying. Yeah. But a healthy competition, I think.
Not between each other.
No, that was also huge.
That was
huge. You didn't pit us against each other. And there was no favorite child.
No.
There was none of that crap in our family. Thank God.
Hate that.
You were so good at, and I always compliment you for this, you never said no to our dreams, even though we were dirt poor at times. And even though we wanted to major in things like music, which in hindsight was dumb. But you know,
Dad and I did, so.
Yeah, but like, do you need a $120,000 music degree? No, I literally learned to belt off of YouTube. I don't know if you know that. Worst classes of my life were my vocal classes. I mean, great people, but just unfortunately in music college, you're kind of like a number in a machine, and it's like, okay, where's the next lesson?
Well, that's what happened to me. I never wanted the traditional education. I wanted to go out. There was a school in LA called the John Davison School of Pop, and it was a 2-year school of pop.
Yeah.
And that's where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that was, of course, before internet and everything. I think I found it in a book.
I was going to say, how'd you even learn about it?
It was like a book, because I would go to the library and do research. And it was like, this would have been perfect for me.
100%.
You know?
Yeah.
And I don't even, I mean, it was very expensive.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably what deterred me. But
yeah.
Anyway, it's just, that's why it's just, I made sure for each one of you, like I bought books. I was talking to Narelle about this the other day. All 3 of you guys love to talk. Never any lack of words in our house.
Every report card.
Yeah. And so.
Only detention I ever got.
Yeah. So I bought this book, Careers for Children Who Like to Talk a Lot. And Narelle just said, I need that. Can you bring me that? I still have it. So
yeah. That and the name book, Mom, rock that all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one thing that I think is really important for anybody listening. Like when you do have children, is celebrate them individually.
Yeah.
People need to be celebrated. People need positive intent spoken into their identity. Because if you are constantly telling them that they're bad, not their actions are bad, but they are bad, then they're going to live up to what you speak. Life and death is in the tongue. And so you never told us our dreams were crazy.
No.
All I ever wanted to be every single Halloween was a pop star. Remember?
Yeah.
I wanted to get it from Nobby's, and the legs were never long enough. Also, we were poor, and they were very expensive. They were like $50 back then.
They were expensive.
For one costume, and you're like, for what? You're going to grow out of it. It's not even going to fit you. But all I ever wanted to be was a pop star. And when Hannah Montana came out, I was like, I missed my calling. This is my calling in life. And I'm so grateful that, you know, and through you guys trusting the Lord of making the sacrifices that you did financially to put us through college and these different things, which were massive sacrifices, we turned out okay.
I will say you all got scholarships really grades, and things like that too. You worked very, very hard. And so you made it easier, you know, for us in the long run to do that.
Thank you.
But, you know, that's another thing. It was a family effort to, again, before, well, I guess we had computer, but just it wasn't, especially like even for Allie, you know, she wanted to play basketball in college. And, you know, how do you do that? You know, had a coach who didn't believe in her, you know, basically told her she was slow and whatever. And I said, you know what, we'll make it happen. And God made it happen.
And that's part of the job of parents too, is like, researching things for your kids, going before, covering, figuring those things out. Like if your kid has a desire or a question, like you were so good about researching and saying, how can we make this possible?
Yeah.
You never shut us down and were like, well, we just don't have enough money for that. Like, even if we didn't have enough money, we were like, okay, what do we need to do? Like, do we need to have a lemonade stand? Like, what do we need to do to make that happen? And
Which
you and Dad sacrificed over and over for that. So for people that maybe came from a culture in their family where it sucked in that regard, how do you feel like you set a culture of excellence in our home? Because you did. I mean, all of us were 4.0 students, all of us. But like also, I didn't feel like pressure in a bad way. I had self-pressure instilled into me with a competition amongst myself in a healthy way where I was like, my own standard is I want a 4.0. How did you set that culture for our family?
I think from early on, just that learning is fun, you know, that it's just that I helped you have a hunger for that at a young age because, again, I was always teaching. We would go to the Children's Museum. We'd do things, we'd give you experiences. You know, like today, everything is experience, which I get, which is really good. But I think the pendulum swung way over here now and it needs to come back just a little bit.
In terms of what?
Everything is experience, like now, just...
Oh, you're saying like you can't just sit down and learn something or what?
Yeah. So it's like it needs to come back. There needs to be a healthy balance of the two. So I tried to give you guys great experiences, but yet we didn't like... Here's what I mean by that. It seems like parents are like, get in the car, go, get in the car and go, get in the car and go. It's like they can't stay home and do anything. They always have to be in the car. They're dragging the kids and they're getting in the car and they're going for an experience. And then
kids need to learn how to be bored too.
Kids need to learn how to just chill.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, be with other kids.
Yeah. 100%.
And not just go have an experience.
Well, and
because then their bodies are like this all the time. And then they wonder why kids are sick.
Yeah, they need to learn how to self-regulate.
Absolutely.
And just like sit and play with a boring toy for 30 minutes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or go outside, you know, go be barefoot in the backyard, connect with the ground.
Yeah.
Because there's a real thing with that, with grounding, you know. And there's just so many things that you can do and explore and at home where it's safe and it's comfortable. And here's another thing. I read this the other day, which is really, it's true. If you allow your kids to be creative when they're young, like up, I think to the age of 4, the more you allow them to be creative, because now it's all, you know, give your kid an iPad, give your kid a whatever it is. What that's doing is it's robbing the child of the creativity and the ability to even discover what they like, what they don't like, who they might want to be. And so, because it's all like this. And so when you take that away from them and you say, go play in the backyard, take your shoes off, experience what the grass feels like, or go read a book, or here's a pan of water and a dipper, or, you know, whatever it is, you're allowing them to experience science, you know, nature, all of these things, and they can discover, ooh, I like that. Ooh, I don't like that. And that transfers later on in life because they've had those experiences rather than like this, because this doesn't do anything but just like it actually takes their brain and it's that. It's like watching some of those cartoon or those kids shows where it does something negative to their brain because it's so many frames per minute and all that stuff.
Yep.
So that's what I tried to do with you guys, you know, as much as possible. Get you to play together. I like to be the house where everybody came to our house because I wanted to control the environment.
Yep.
We weren't big on sleepovers.
Yep.
Because I wanted to control them.
100%.
I don't trust anybody else with my kids.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who we actually allowed sleepovers with. Like maybe one time as a team, which was a disaster because they watched scary movies and I called you and wanted to come home.
I think I came and got you.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, one time in middle school, remember you did? Because the whole house smelled like smoke. And I was like, I felt convicted the second I got there. And I was like, I shouldn't be here. But I wanted to be with the popular girls. And I remember I was just like, not worth it. And thank God I had the courage to call you. And yeah, there's a weird spirit. And then the second time, it was a basketball team sleepover. And again, they were like, oh, ha, 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 Megan gets scared. And they wanted to watch a scary movie. And my spirit couldn't take it. And I was just like, I don't like this. Like, this is stupid. Like, why do you guys like this? And I think about just my sense of self today. And I'm like, I don't play with darkness. Y'all can all have the mental health issues and the crap that came with you allowing darkness into your eye gates and ear
Curses,
gates
whatever.
all the time.
Yeah.
Y'all can have that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty content with my life now. And you can call me whatever you want, you know? But I think you guys instilled in us a healthy sense of guarding our heart and just a hatred towards evil, but like in a good way. You know, like you didn't let us watch Harry Potter and all that stuff too, which I hated at the time. But I also get like, you know, but you guys also didn't like over spiritualize everything where you were like, okay, you can't watch anything on Disney and you can't watch, you know, like you guys had a really good healthy balance of, I think, explaining why. And you still gave us, you showed us where the fence was and you said you can play inside that fence like you talked about.
And I think as a parent, then you have to discern and decide what they can process and what they can't, what you can't process.
Yeah, don't expose them to something that they can't handle.
Well, exactly. Like witchcraft, all this stuff now and whatever. No, I mean, in my opinion, no child should be exposed to any of that stuff.
No.
I mean, there are adults who don't even understand it. No. Just because it's cool and popular and whatever doesn't mean you need to be throwing your kid into that mix. No, because it's definitely going to come back at you.
Yeah, I think the most daring thing that you allowed was like Wizards of Waverly Place. Because that was technically magic, but it was like a wholesome family. And for once, it was a husband and wife that were together.
Is that like middle school?
Yeah, Selena Gomez. It was completely wholesome. And honestly, they weren't really like, I'm going to cast a spell on you. It was more like they had magic powers, if that makes sense. More like a superhero kind of a thing. And so again, you just have to use discernment. It's like, and if your spirit goes off as a parent and the Holy Spirit says no, then it's a no.
But again, have a conversation with your kids. Like we raised you to ask questions, even at school. Like I remember Ian, like the Friday thing that came in middle school. It was like a, what do you want to call it? Like a 2-page current events thing that would come every Friday. And we'd just gotten back from like our second mission trip to Haiti or something. And they had a whole article on Haiti. And Ian read it. And because we talk about everything. And it was completely not factual. It was not factual. And so he came home and he brought it home and he said, hey, Mom and Dad, you know, this is that. And so he had it was Mr. Crumbly. And so we had a conversation with Ian and said, hey, here's the facts. We've been there, right? And so there's a way to present this to your teacher in the right tone, the right way, and whatever. And so that was one of the first times that Ian went back and presented that. Mr. Crumbly, we talked to him afterwards and said, thank you for doing that. It was done respectfully. And then Ian was known as that kid, you know, it was like in the class. And today it's not shocker, right, for what he does. But those were all teaching moments of how to do something like that, you know?
Yeah. How did you, at what point did you start to really parent differently for specific kids' personalities? And one thing that you and I talk about a lot is like, you had to rein me in, but not dull my spirit, or whatever you say. You say like, yeah, you were still to be my parent, but you didn't want to like snuff the light out.
The Lord specifically, when I was praying about you one time, he said, children like you, because you're a world changer. And I knew from the minute you were, I mean, basically one, when you said, I do it, you know, it's like, here we go. He said, the Lord said, the challenge with her and the blessing with her is that you will have to learn how to bend her, but not break her.
That's what it was, yeah.
So in the bending is when I had to learn how to parent you without breaking you. Because once you break a spirit, it's hard to come back from there.
Wow.
You know? And so parenting you was completely different. But look at you now. I mean, that's how God created you. And so, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, and just you're doing amazing things for God, and you've always done, and you're just getting started, So I would say for anybody who has a 1-year-old that you're just like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Look at this child as this is probably, I mean, not that every child is a world changer in a different way, but when they have that strong personality, God created them that for a reason. So I had to discipline you to where Allie and Ian, I could tell them something and, fine. For you, I had to
It was
tell
going to
you
be
once,
challenged every
twice,
time.
third. I mean, it would, and that's where parents can get worn out. They can get worn out, but you just have to, you cannot cave.
Yeah.
You can't, no matter how worn.
What did that look like verbally? Because I think, so you and I, when I would say I was a teenager through my early 20s even, as I was, like there was definitely a bucking.
Yeah.
And part of it was my fault, of course, because I was insecure and I was growing up and I was just like questioning so many things about myself. Why am I not like her? Why am I not like this?
You got that internal, external conflict.
100%.
Yeah.
And so it was easy just to point my arrows at you because you were the only one close enough at me to challenge me, right? And I had really hard time with female friendships. I had all these just questions that were going on in the inside that I didn't really know how to surrender to the Lord. But also it's just normal, I guess, for a growing teenager figuring it out, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember it'd be a combination of like a lot of kitchen table conversations where one or both of us are crying. And then also heated exchanges because I had a strong spirit, but I always say this, like most people only have an understanding of 5 to 10 emotions, and that includes adults actually, if they don't work on it. And so I feel like in our family, I understood happiness and joy for sure. I understood humor and laughter for sure. I think I understood sadness to an extent. And probably anger was my other emotion that I really knew how to express. But beyond that, if I would feel, let's say, disappointed or even the word betrayed or feeling controlled, I didn't know how to say that. I was feeling it, but I didn't have the words to express that. So it's like disappointment was trying to come down my filter, but it was stuck because my filter wasn't mature enough and grown enough to be able to just say, hey, Mom, when you disciplined me in that way, I felt controlled or I felt disappointed, or hey, this really has to do with this girl was mean to me again at school and this has nothing to do with you. And so anger, which is always a secondary emotion, I'm pointing my anger at you, but it really has to do with blah, 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 because this made me feel worthless today, right? So that's where like I think about in the future as I'm a parent and I'm like, okay, I think one of the best things that someone could have done for me in that moment to grow me up faster, which hindsight's 2020, like we're fine, we got through it.
Yeah.
And that's honestly where the Enneagram helped so much. And I think that was such an unlock in really realizing that we were the same person. So it was almost like we were like co-triggering each other because I would feel controlled by you and then I would control you and then you would feel controlled. So then you'd want to control me more, right? And so it was literally like this like control fest of two super strong women. And then we'd just yell and blow up and then I would walk away, right? And it was not healthy, but it was what we were working with the tools in our toolbox at the time. And so I remember the unlock of when, unfortunately, this ultimately manifested in me dating a narcissist and him stripping me down to the fibers of my identity. And actually, ironically, I don't even know if you know this, but one day when we were fighting, I can tell you exactly where we were. And he told me that one of my assignments of what I should do to be a better person was go study the emotional wheel on Google. And that was my assignment to be a better person because all the arguments were my fault. And so I did. And I was like, what is this thing? And so I studied the emotional wheel. And what it is it's like on the end, have you ever seen it? On the inside, it's like the 7 core emotions, like sadness, anger, happiness, whatever.
Yeah.
And then from there, there's like synonyms for those things and then synonyms for those things. And it just helps you build a vocabulary of emotions. And so ironically, even though that was like super toxic and unhealthy, I did that. And it actually really, really, really helped. And over the years, it's helped me to grow that filter where when I'm feeling that pent up, that wants to manifest naturally in anger as an 8, and thank God it's helped me in my marriage a ton, I'm now able to say, no, Megan, this is actually disappointment. No, Megan, this is actually grief. No, Megan, this is actually whatever, resentment, right? And then immediately it's like, it's like something in you that knows that emotion has been processed, came all the way through the assembly line rather than like 50 boxes getting stuck in the assembly line and now we're pressing the red alarm button, right? So that's kind of how I would describe you and I's fights growing up, was like, in my emotional immaturity, we just didn't know how to resolve conflict. And then all of a sudden, like in my mid-20s, we really learned how to. And then I always tell you this, but the Lord showed me a vision of you as a little girl. And he was like, every single time you yell at your mom, you're yelling at the 7-year-old version of your mom. And I just broke down in tears. And I was like, I can't even like say that now without tearing up. But the Lord showed me that. And that's actually what caused me to have a turn, like in my mid-20s, is he's like, stop yelling at 7-year-old Julie. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it changed everything for me.
Wow.
And that's actually like what made me a better person.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so every time I'm pissed off at somebody, I think about that now too. And I'm like, on the inside of everybody is a 7-year-old version of them that's doing their best. You know what I mean? And so it gave me like such a compassion. And I think it helped me understand as a strong person, but even people that like I really don't get along with that are like so different than me.
Yeah.
It helped me to like slow down and just realize like everyone really is doing their best with the tools that they have. And I think that even inspired me in my coaching and in my business now to like really want to fight for people and fight for helping people become the best versions of themselves, because we all are dealt a hand of cards, you know? Yeah. And there were certainly times in my life where I was a very rigid person, I would say. But it was like there was a gooey center on the inside that if you really knew me, it was like the gooeyest goo you've ever seen. But there's just like a huge disconnect between hurt Megan and like real Megan.
That's a key. You know, when you said hurt Megan or healthy Megan, basically.
Yeah.
And that's usually what's happening. It's just what's, you know, input, output. What's going on the inside is going to manifest on the outside. So if you don't know who you are, if your self-worth is not what it needs to be, that's going to manifest, you know, and it doesn't matter. Well, just like if you're dating somebody and they're not treating you nice, why are you accepting that?
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Why? Do you think you deserve that? Or why are you settling?
Yeah. Or they just think they're out of options.
You know? Or, I mean, I didn't get married till I was 31, you know, and I hear women say, well, you know, I'm getting older. Okay. So what does that mean? Does that mean you settle? Because you're going to be with this person for the rest of your life. So why are you settling? Why are you settling? You're worth way more than that. You're worth so much more. I don't care if it's a man and you've got a female that's treating you the same way. I'm not talking just women with men. I'm talking men with women.
Yeah.
Why are you settling? Don't you think you deserve more than that? Don't you think you deserve the best that God has for you? Because you have to think about the legacy. You have to think about your children. What is this combination going to produce? You know, what is going to be your legacy? Your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. So don't you want the best that God has for you so that you can see the generations continue and get stronger and stronger and better and better? That's what God wants for you too. That's what he has, you know? And I had to get down on my knees one night after I moved back from LA. I remember being in my apartment and I just got down on my knees by my bed and I just said, okay, I give up. I just give up, God. I said, I've tried to do it my way and I'm done. I remember just sobbing by my bed, just sobbing. And I think it wasn't too long after that I met Dad. But I literally just gave everything up and I said, I'm done doing it my way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Let's end with this last question because Landon and I addressed it from our perspective. But I mean, I think darn near everybody that I know that eventually gets married has that moment, and then it's not that long.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is a hot take. This is my perspective. But if someone is like, let's just say someone comes to you and they're like, but I've done that and I've surrendered and it's still been 7 years. Do you agree with that? Or do you think there's something that they still have to work on, which is why God has not brought their husband? Or what do you think it is? Do you ever think God actually makes someone wait 7, 10 years if they've fully surrendered? Because I don't.
No, I don't.
I don't.
I had a conversation with a young man this week who, I'm telling you, he had one of those moments and he desires to be married. And I saw him yesterday, actually, and I'm like, wow, haircut, like all kinds of changes. Mm-hmm. And I said, because I'm somebody that can speak into his life. And I said, wow, what's going on here? You know, what's going on? And he just said that he really started being convicted of things that the Lord had been talking to him about. And he just said, okay, because he said he wants to be married, he desires to be married, but he wasn't willing to make the changes that the Lord had talked to him about. And he had made changes. Mm-hmm. And so he thought, well, I'm good. Mm. But then there were other changes that
Sometimes
the Lord...
there's layers.
That's exactly what I told him. Mm. And he goes, I didn't realize that there were layers. I said, oh, there's always layers.
And those layers might take time.
Exactly.
And that's okay, because you don't want to meet the person before it's time.
Exactly.
And people try to make it happen because they marry the first thing that sticks on the wall because they're freaking lonely.
Yep.
And then you're miserable, and now you've produced children with...
Yep. Mm-hmm. And again, that's that generational thing. Mm-hmm. You have to think bigger than just you.
Yeah.
You know?
And just now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so important.
And so I'm just really proud of this person, and he's going to be checking in, you know, with us. And
look, he's desiring accountability, and God will honor that.
Absolutely.
When you lean into, tell me what you're seeing. Mm-hmm. Lan and I just talked about this. Like, that is universally attractive when you carry that spirit.
Absolutely.
And just like we were talking about when you were walking in, like, if you have a great heart and you want to provide and protect, and you carry a spirit of, I'm working on myself, so many other things are flexible. So many other things a wife would love to help you with. As long as you want to provide for your family, you want to be a good guy, and you're willing to confront the things in you that maybe are prideful, you know what I mean? Like the character things. Yeah. But as long as you're somebody who's like pursuing personal growth and what God has for you, like pretty much everything else can be worked on.
But here's the other thing too, because when you said, as soon as you surrender, you don't think that it's too long. But I'd been in preparation for a long time.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I was 30. I remember my 30th birthday, I went out to eat with my mom and dad, and it was a bummer. It was a bummer. I mean, who wants to turn 30? I'm like, I'm going out to eat with my parents, which I love. Yeah. I mean, I just, it was great. And they knew, and they just said, I mean, like I had nobody to date. I had nobody to, so they took me out to eat. That's the type of wonderful parents that I had. But I was sad, you know? I was like, wow, okay, never saw this coming, you know? But also I didn't realize I was going to marry somebody younger than me. So don't count out what God has for you, you know? Yeah. I never thought I was going to marry somebody younger than me. I never thought, I was like, this. I had to do all of these steps. I had to move back from LA when I didn't want to. I had to do all these things first in preparation for that.
And God was preparing Dad the whole time.
Absolutely.
Because if you would have, just like Landon and I, if you would have gotten together a second before you did, it wouldn't have worked.
No. I mean, he'd been on his own since he left, you know, high school anyway. He was down in Miami. So God was preparing him. I mean, it still doesn't mean you don't grow, you know, together. But there's just, you just let the Lord do it. Yeah. And that's why, again, come back around to those one or two people that know you, that can speak into your life, that can say, you might want to think about this, or, oh, have you thought about that? Or,
or hey, like you still have this to work on, you know? And then the Bible says when you're planted in the house of God that you will flourish. Yeah. So part of trusting God is also like, I think a lot of women specifically try to take the reins, and they're so used to having the reins, and especially if you get married later, you've had the reins for 10 or so years, living your own life, working, doing whatever. And surrender might be a foreign concept, but it's also might be part of the process of unlocking that femininity in you again, like
that's a great point.
Learning how to lay that down and say, God, like, I'm not the master of my own fate. Again, I'm going to put down this like aggressive boss babe energy where I've had to like protect myself, provide myself. I got it. I don't need anything, Landon and I talked about that. And
I had to do that because
I had to do that.
Absolutely.
100%. And again, that could have been right for a season. Like, yes, please have a job, provide for yourself in your 20s. Like, yes, there are valuable life lessons and character refinement that can come through that. And then you're going to be entering into a different season and a different version of yourself as a wife. And so there's a preparation season. I mean, look at the Old Testament. The preparation season was like intense, right?
Yeah.
And your family got a dowry and you had to be purified 17 ways to Sunday with all the oils and all this crap. And you were set apart, right? And so trust that, like, let God be God and you be you. And if you do all the things that we're telling you, I promise it will come together.
That's the thing. I know a lot of people don't believe, well, God's got that special person for you. He absolutely does.
He wouldn't have put desire in your heart.
Absolutely.
Paul talked about it. Paul was like, I don't want to be married. If you do, great, get married.
But he was different.
But that's what I'm saying.
He wouldn't have been able to write the New most of the New Testament if he would have been married. He would not have been able to do that.
Totally.
Because being single, you don't have the distractions of a family.
Yep.
You don't have the distractions of all of that.
Yep.
I mean, and it's not, distractions, but you don't have the responsibilities.
Time commitment, yeah.
So God chose him to be single for that reason.
But what I'm saying is he said it himself that that's what he desired.
Yes.
Right? So I think it's such a religious lie that people are like, well, what if I have this desire, but it's just not God's plan for me?
No.
I'm like, that's literally not a thing. That's not a thing because God doesn't toy with you. It says if you ask for bread, he doesn't give you a snake. You know what I mean? Or is it a stone? I forget.
Yeah.
So that's where we have to get a right paradigm of even God the Father who is good. That is the top of the umbrella, top of the pyramid, whatever you want to call it. God is good and he loves to give good gifts to his children, period. Read Genesis. He created marriage. Why would he create marriage and say the greatest thing you can do is be fruitful and multiply? Yeah. And then he's like, oh, but not you. You know what I mean? God's no respecter of persons. So like read your Bible and figure out who he is. And you might be resentfully thinking, well, that's easy for you to say because you met your person. And it's easy for you to say because you were raised in a perfect household. And it's easy for you to say it. Well, guess what? I didn't get married till I was, I don't even know, 28. And some people would say that that's late. In other countries, that's late, right? And so it's like, you can find an excuse for anything or you can trust God in anything, right?
That's another point. This conversation with this young gentleman.
Yeah.
He's just
super young.
He's super young.
He's super young.
But he's just the cutest.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, interesting, because what type of things, had the Lord been talking to you about? Uh-huh. And I said, and so he told me, and I said, oh, so you kind of just jumped ahead. And he goes, yeah. And I said, interesting. Mm-hmm. So in that time that you jumped ahead, do you feel like you were hearing from God, like you did before? And he goes, well, no, not really. And I said, why do you think that is? And he's like, well, I never thought about it. So what I mean by that is if God has told you to do something and you haven't done it, and then all of a sudden you're over here and you're asking, God, I need you to talk to me. I need you to talk to me. I need a word from you.
Yes.
And what he'll probably say to you is, well, what about that last word? Uh-huh. What about that last word I gave you? Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but no, not yeah, but.
Get your butt out of the way.
Have you done it?
Jesse says.
No, well, because the people that, if he gives you a word, he's not going to give you another word until you do what he's asked you to do. Why? Because he knows the order that the things need to come in. Yeah. He's protecting you. Yeah. I mean, so you can't jump ahead to, number 5 until you do number 1 for a reason. Because God sees way in the future. He knows all, sees all, protecting, providing everything else, because you're going to mess all this up in here.
Yeah. I think I saw like a vision of, we both love The Amazing Race. So I saw a vision of like Did you watch that season where there was like 1 million keys and they had to find the one lock that it went in?
That was crazy.
Like, okay, you could be running around and you're trying 50 keys and you're like, this one's going to be it. This one's going to be it. This one's going to be it, right? But there's one fit for the key that you have, and that's what it is. And no matter how many other things you try and jam it into, there's one fit that goes with one thing. And that's not me to say that there's one person for you in this world. I think that you can make a quality decision with the information that you have. But my point is like everybody thinks they're ready now.
Yeah.
That's the nature of human beings. Everybody wants to be skinny now.
Because we're wired for love.
Everybody wants to be rich now. Everybody wants everything now, right? So don't let your emotions cloud your judgment of like,
that's good.
Thinking you're behind because you don't have something now. Just focus on the next thing that God told you to do, and eventually you'll be there. Eventually you'll have it. In the same way that you have to save $1 before you have $1 million, right? You have to lose 1 pound before you lose 10 pounds. Like, why do we think that this is any different? There is a process to every successful thing. There's a process to every win, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so if you can just learn to be content where you are now, doesn't mean that you're satisfied, but you can find contentment in every season. And again, that's an attractive quality for someone. They want to see somebody that's content, but still on their mission. You know, nobody wants to marry somebody that's just like okay with what it is. And the only thing, here's the other thing. Marriage doesn't make you happy.
Exactly.
I mean, it brings me joy. I love being married to my best friend, but I was content and happy before that. I had a purpose before that. I had friends before that. I had things I was working on before that.
Yep.
Guess what? 51% of marriages end in divorce. If marriage made you happy and completed you, that wouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
Just like having children doesn't make your marriage better. Like, have a great marriage and then have children because it will stress you out, you know?
One of the best pieces of advice, which just happened to be our timetable anyway, was when you get married, our pastor said, just take the first 2 years of married life and just enjoy each other.
Yeah, it's us too, actually.
But for me, I mean, I was older, you know, so I was like, you know, and then, you know, those thoughts start coming. It's like, oh, so 32. So
well, plus they used to tell you 35 was a geriatric pregnancy,
well,
which
they
is
still
ridiculous.
do. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
But it's just like, then like whatever. And then the whole thing with, you know, being told we weren't able to have kids and the whole miracle with all of you guys and everything else. So I think that those first 2 years are critical because you're building a foundation for life, you know, and then you bring the kids in, which, you know, you have another foundation. But if you don't have that foundation, you can't ever, I mean, when are you going to build, you can't build it the same way as when you bring kids in.
You cannot.
I mean, so build the foundation first.
Yeah. Why add more stress? It's like pouring gasoline on a fire.
And then I've had people say, well, I'm 38 and I'm not married. Okay, well, okay, just wait, just as long as you can wait. I mean, I just had a friend who had a baby at 50. So, okay. I mean, take care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
God will give you the desires of your heart.
Yeah.
Right?
And here's the other thing. Not popular, but like, let's say that you are 42 and you're like, okay, well, I've gotten my life together. Sometimes you have to count the cost of the sin of the past too. And I'm not saying like being married at 42 means you sinned.
Right.
But like, if you were living a different life and let's say that you came to Christ at 40 and now had the desire to be a mom, sometimes there's a grieving season for sins you committed or a life that is in the past where maybe the initial way of what you thought family would look like is not the way that family ends up looking like for you. Maybe you adopt, maybe you foster, maybe you whatever, right? But I think sometimes, again, like and this is not popular, but like an Americanized, living period, the wages of sin is death. And so sometimes we need a healthy fear of the Lord where if you are listening in your 20s today, don't do things. Actually, Charlie and Erica Kirk just did an amazing episode on this. They're like, you want to be married? Great. Don't do a bunch of crap that is diametrically opposed to the life that you want in your late 20s. And don't just keep saying, oh, I'll think about that when I'm 28.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll think about that when I'm 29. Oh, I'll think about that when I'm 30.
Yeah.
It also doesn't mean you need to be marriage obsessed when you're 21, because that ticked me off in college. Like, women had no dreams, and it was just like everyone just wanted to be married. And I was like, you are a person as well. You
That's
know,
always been that was what
right? And especially in the South.
Yeah.
So again, it's a balance. And what is that right balance? You need to have a relationship with the Lord.
Yes.
You need to hear his voice, because he will not lead you astray.
That's right.
And when we have a healthy fear of the Lord, which is not being afraid of him, but is being submitted to him, he will never lead you the wrong direction. He won't. And it's this, he leads you beside still waters, and he restores your soul in the process. And he loves to give good gifts to his children. That's just who he is.
The plans he has for you are good.
Yes, Jeremiah 29:11.
Exactly. The plans he has for you are good plans. Not plans to settle.
Yes, exactly.
Good plans.
Exactly. And he can do anything.
Absolutely.
And he
if you're
wants to make you
40
happy.
and you're not married, he's got a plan for you.
100%.
He's
and
got a plan.
Great. It'll be better.
It's going to be.
Ephesians 3:20 says it'll be better than you could ever ask, hope, or imagine.
Ephesians 3:20 through 22.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. So stand on those scriptures.
Yes.
And as you stand on those things, he will continue to refine you in that process and show you the way of success of what that looks like for you.
Yeah. And just declare that over your life. I thank you, Father, that, as I work on myself, that my husband is on his way. I thank you, Father, that as I work on myself, my wife is on her way, and at the right time, I will see, and he will see. And because your timing is perfect. Another thing you can say is, I thank you, Father, that I'm always in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, give me eyes to see and ears to hear.
Absolutely. Yep. So just start declaring those things over your life because words matter.
Yeah.
And what are you saying over yourself? Are you talking bad about yourself? Are you living with hope and expectation and joy and peace? Those are the things that are going to be attractive to the right mate.
Yeah, and like Dad says, God, make it obvious or slam the door shut.
Exactly.
That's what Lan and I were just praying last night. We were like, God, don't let red lights look like green lights or green lights look like red lights. Like, make every green light feel abundantly like a green light. And if it's a red light, just slam it closed and make it so abundantly
I think that's Isaiah 22, open the doors that need to be open and close the doors, slam the doors that need to be closed.
Yeah, that's good.
Cut and dry. Yeah. Absolutely.
Amen. Well, thank you for being on this episode.
Thanks for having me.
We'll have you back. This is a great conversation. And I hope that everybody just gleans a ton of wisdom from the wise person that you are. Is there anything else that you want to say, or do you want to pray, or are you feeling good?
I just want to encourage everybody that's listening, God's got you. He's got you. Wherever you are, no matter what you're walking through, he's got you. He's got a plan. It's a good plan. He's got a mate if you desire a mate. If you are desiring children, he's got children for you. If you desire a new job, he's got the right job for you. He is a good father. He's a good father. So get to know him. If you don't know him, get to know him. Today's the day when it'll change your life. If you do know him, I would just encourage you to get to know him in a different way, a deeper way. There's no limit to how much you can know him. There's no limit to how much he wants to show you. There's no limit to what he wants to give you, because we're his kids, and he wants to give good gifts to his kids. And so the more you lean into him, the more he's going to show himself to you. And that's my encouragement for you today. And I'm excited. If there's any way to hear testimonials, I want to know testimonials and put them
in the comments below.
Yeah.
Or if you had a big aha moment of something that helped you today, or an action step that you need to take from today, we'd love to hear it in the comments.
We'd love to hear that. And
and
because God's going to do it. This is the year not only when I know. I call it all the RE words: restoration, repair, resurrection, all the RE words. Restitution, all of those words are coming true this year. All the prodigals are coming home. Amen. Family members are coming to the Lord. God's got big things planned. And so you want to be in the river with what's happening this year. You don't want to be over here and you don't want to be over here. You want your eyes fixed on him because for those whose eyes are fixed on him this year, he's going to be taking us to places that we could never hope, dream, or imagine, like the Ephesians 3:20 to 22. He's got plans for us that are just going to amaze us. And so if you want to be a part of that, jump into the Word, jump in to what he has for you, and just can't wait to see what that looks like.
And in closing, you can buy my mom's book. She's a children's author. So if you want great books to read to your kids, you can look up Grandma Loves You by Julie Swanson on Amazon, right?
Yeah, and
do you know that Grandma loves you?
And my second book
one's coming out.
We're almost done. We're just kind of finishing up the second touches on.
Yep. And you can follow her at Real Mama Swan on Instagram and all that good stuff.
And hopefully my podcast will be starting soon.
Yes. We're trying to get her to start her show and I'm kicking her butt. So if you liked this, it'll be coming to the YouTube very soon. Awesome. Well, thanks, Mom, and thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Woke up today, smile on my face, may not go my way, still got my faith, so I'll be okay. I'll be okay. I'll be okay.